0702.
Health and Wellness.
It's 23 minutes before 12 o'clock, and this health and wellness feature is brought to you by Cipla. Stay connected with us. Today, we're having a conversation on our health and wellness feature about period safety. Because for many years, the conversation around menstrual health in South Africa is focused on access, on making sure that girls and women can afford and obtain sanitary products, right? But what if the products themselves are not entirely safe? There's this new study by the University of the Free State that has raised some concerns about the presence of endocrine disrupting chemicals in commonly used sanitary pads and panty liners, products used by millions and millions every single month. But the Department of Health has sought to reassure the public, saying that these products remain safe for use. But still, this has sparked an important and at times uncomfortable debate. Can we truly talk about menstrual dignity if questions about long-term chemical exposure remain? Because advocates argue that menstrual health is not just about access, but it's about what we are putting in close, prolonged contact with our bodies, and whether current regulations go far enough to protect the actual users. So I'd like you to share your thoughts on 011-883-0702. You can send that via the WhatsApp line as well on 072-702-1702. Tracey Malawana is the founder and executive director of Menstruate Movement, who's going to guide us through this conversation. Tracey, thank you for making time. Good morning.
Good morning to you and good morning to the listeners at home. Thank you so much for having us.
No, thank you. This is quite an important conversation. I'm sure you've seen the Department of Health come out and say, well, these products are actually still safe for use. But I know you've been raising some concerns. Where do you see the gaps here?
So firstly, I think we need to ground this conversation on the fact that periods are not just a personal experience, but they are a human rights issue. When we speak about menstrual health, we are speaking about a human rights issue. And our constitution guarantees the right to human dignity, among other rights, and bodily integrity related to product safety. And this means everyone has a right to control what happens to their own body, and they need to be protected from harm. So I think when we speak about product safety, we need to ground that conversation specifically on our constitution, which protects us as people who menstruate. Then coming back to your question, the first thing I think that we were there at the media briefing in person on that day when the Department of Health, through the Minister of Health, delivered the public address saying that we can continue to use menstrual products. And they said that, they consulted with many people and they were saying it's okay to continue using sanitary pads and panty liners despite the endocrine disrupting chemicals that are found in them. And what we said, our response as an organization, we said that it's important for them as, the South African government to put in place standards that are, transparent to ensure that all of us who are using whatever product, especially a product that comes into contact with our bodies, including sanitary pads, they need to provide transparency. What is in these products? They need to ensure that there's proper testing. They need to put in place standards to ensure that those who are using products like sanitary pads and panty liners, they are safe. They are menstruating with safety, with dignity, but most importantly with the support that they need from their government. So those are, I guess, some of the key things that we are asking for. We need full transparency to be able to make informed decisions, that we are protected by our constitution, as I've mentioned, when you look at bodily integrity.
But do you think both things can be true, though, in that the products are considered safe according to the health department, but then still not sufficiently regulated? What's your thinking around the regulations that currently exist? Is that enough?
So it's not enough. There are gaps. as I've mentioned, there are gaps. If there are toxic, chemicals in these products, our government would need to respond to those. Even though they say that long-term exposure of endocrine may not lead to long-term sexual reproductive health-related issues, it doesn't mean that they are not there. They need to be eliminated completely. So our government will need to put in place standards to ensure that those menstruators I've mentioned, they menstruate with, dignity, and most importantly, they menstruate with safety. So we need those standards. We need them to include, proper thorough testing. What exactly are they testing when they are saying they are testing these products? Number two, they need to put in place, disclose what is in these products. So full transparency in terms of ingredients that is used to make these, menstrual products, especially sanitary pads and tampons, the disposable ones. Then they also need to educate us about other products that are out there. I think, when that study came to light in February, many of us were having conversations about alternatives. What are the alternatives? And many people did not know that there are actually reusable menstrual products, including a menstrual cup, which is, according to the people who manufacture them, they say they are manufactured as, a medical device. And you'd know that sanitary products or disposable menstrual products are not manufactured as that. They are manufactured as consumer goods, similar to other goods that we buy, in our supermarkets. So I'd say those are the key things that our government will need to pay attention to. Maybe one thing to also add in that is that we don't have global standards. I know that within the global community, there's a conversation taking place about putting in place standards to properly regulate menstrual products in different countries, including South Africa.
The fact that we still really don't have a standardized sort of practice and expectations, and as far as these products are concerned, is actually quite interesting. I've got some questions coming from our listeners who are joining this conversation, Tracey, and let me start maybe with a call. Yes, a call from East London. Zandile, you calling us from East London. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement and Tracey. How are you?
Good. Zandile, what's your question? Go ahead.
I'd just like to ask, I just want to ask Tracey, does the duration that someone wears a pad also impact the safety of it? So considering that you already have issues distributing pads, and if you're going to ration it and say someone should use one packet for their cycle, if the duration of their period is longer than, 3 days or 4 days, and they might have to wear that pad over a prolonged period, does that not also contribute?
Yes. No, thank you. That's a great question, Zandile in East London. Thank you. Tracey?
Thank you so much, Zandile, for that question, because we're focusing on what government needs to do. So the key issue that we've been, including as part of our education as I Menstruate and other organizations, I know they speak about this. According to, the manufacturer, but also the health experts, they're saying that we need to use a pad, for instance. I'll use a pad as an example, for 3 to 4 hours. That is the standard, use of a menstrual pad. But the reality is, with period poverty, having so many learners who are school-going, who do not have access to enough menstrual products, then they are forced to use, a menstrual product longer than the time that or the duration that is set. So those are some of the issues that I guess we deal with. And when we speak about menstruating with dignity, safety, and proper support. So, I'll stop there, but I'll just say duration does have everything to do with safety when we speak about menstrual product safety, especially from a personal use.
Yeah. There's also a question about the endocrine disrupting chemicals. Someone who's asking, why are they a concern in the menstrual products?
So according to the study that was published by the University of Free State and also studies within the global, community or spaces, that the endocrine, according to researchers and scientists, they say if you if the long-term or prolonged-term use of products that have endocrine may lead to serious sexual reproductive health issues, including infertility, PCOS. Some of these diseases that we see many women struggling with, online, even on TikTok, nowadays when you check sexual reproductive health related issues, especially related to menstrual health, you see so many women struggling with them. So because of that, those are the reasons why endocrine is not good for our body. And the minister did say that it's found in, lipsticks and other products that we are using, especially as women, and also in, minds when he was explaining what endocrine is. But that does not, dismiss the fact that, if something as intimate as a pad has a chemical that is likely to cause harm to us as people who menstruate long term, because we use these products on a monthly basis for more than 30 years. So you are likely to struggle with long-term issues and an extreme, impact of using products that have endocrine. It includes cancer. So those are some of the key issues that were raised by that study that we need to be aware of, and also we need to engage our government to put in place standards, but most importantly to protect us as consumers or users of these products, and also hold corporates accountable. I've been saying that we should not leave out manufacturers. We need to include them in this conversation. They also have an obligation according to, the policies and the constitution of trading in different countries. So they need to ensure that they also protect us from harm as part of exercising corporate accountability. Maybe to just close, our menstrual health equity bill, which we presented in Parliament on the proposed menstrual health equity bill, which we presented in Parliament on the 1st of April, it does speak on, product safety. When you look at Chapter 3, which is under point 8, we speak about what government needs to do. They need to the Department of Women, it says the Department of Women, along with the Department of Health, they need to put in place standards. Of course, they need to include other departments, your SAPS, your SAPRA, your National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications, and the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition to enforce standards that are protecting us, binding standards that are protecting us as people who menstruate, to ensure that we menstruate with dignity, safety, but most importantly, we menstruate with proper support from our government.
Absolutely, dignity and safety. Tracey, I'm going to take a quick ad break. When we come back, we'll wrap up with some more questions from the WhatsApp line as well that are coming on 0727021702. It's 10 minutes before 12.
702. Health and wellness.
All right, 6 minutes now before 12 o'clock. We're just about to wrap up our conversation about period safety. Let's go to Miriam first, though, who is calling us from Kempton Park. Miriam, what are your thoughts? Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Clement. How are you?
Sharp. How are you doing?
I'm good. I have a question for my lady there. Is it advisable to use panty liners every day? Is it healthy to use panty liners every day, or is it advisable?
Okay, so using them every
question.
single day. Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. All right, thank you, Miriam. Yeah, Tracey?
Thank you for that question, Miriam. So there's Dr. Gaini, she's also known as Dr. Mbumezenda. You can follow her on Instagram. Yes. She normally gives tips about our vaginas and how to, everything that has to do with vaginas. And she says that it's not advisable because you need to allow your vagina to breathe. So those are some of the things that we need to inform ourselves as people who menstruate or people who have vaginas to ensure that we are not exposing ourselves to danger. So it's not advisable based on the medical advice that people like, a gynecologist called Dr. Zenda would normally give on social media platforms.
Absolutely. And Dr. Gaini, by the way, is a friend of the show. We have her on the show a number of times. In fact, I think we're scheduled to bring her and because we normally bring in two experts, right? Dr. Shingai and Dr. Gaini to come and take your sexual health related questions. So, Miriam, what I'll do, I'll bank also this question and I'll get Dr. Gaini to just explain more in responding to what is healthy and what is not. And then I've got a message here from someone who says, "Hi Clement, I'm a South African based in Germany and listening to your discussion. I completely agree. Sanitary pads must be certified. In Germany, all products are certified and regulated as a law. So women's health is very much protected." And it's exactly, Tracey, what you guys are trying to push for. How do you then advise? Is there pressure that can be put by the consumers themselves? I mean, as an organization, I see you're pushing really hard to make sure there's these standards that are adhered to. The manufacturers can be held accountable as well. But do you need more support? Is there a way consumers as well can maybe speak out to put that pressure on government to take this seriously?
Thank you so much for that. Of course, we all have a role to play. We have a constitution that outlines our rights, and also have a responsibility as citizens in South Africa to ensure that those rights are, realized. So I'll start off with maybe grounding this conversation to the fact that iMenstruate is calling on government to legislate what we call a menstrual health equity bill. We've written this bill. It was put together through an imaginary activism. Then we've developed it to be a menstrual health equity bill. It's costed, so we know how much it will cost to implement this bill, and it comes with an implementation plan. So that's what we presented in Parliament. And the reason why I'm bringing that to this conversation is because we don't just need standards. We need our government to legally recognize menstrual health as a human rights issue. Then we need our government to be able to respond holistically to the politics of menstruation, ensuring that those who menstruate, they do so, as I've mentioned earlier, with dignity, safety, and support. And when you look at our bill, it speaks about we're calling on government to make menstrual products free for all. And under that section, it speaks about national standards that we were talking about. Then it goes back to things like menstrual health, mental well-being, because for people who menstruate, there's a mental, mentally, sometimes we are not doing well as people who menstruate, and we don't understand. And we don't have the support we need at that. It's about those things, and it touches on everything that has to do with menstruation. So people should check it out.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put that out as well, Tracey. I'm sorry I have to come in there because I'm completely out of time. But thank you so much for joining us. This was so insightful. Tracey Malawana, founder and executive director of iMenstruate Movement.